This is Corey, and this is the Cultivate and Keep podcast, where we talk about what it means to be a man as a Christian. And today, I would like to welcome back our man, the one and only Jer Swag.
What's up?
How you doing?
I'm good, man.
How do you feel?
I feel married and good and happy.
Good. I'm glad you feel married, because you are.
Yeah, I am.
That just happened.
Yeah. It's been great so far.
So far. It'll continue to be great and become greater, of course. So you got married 2 weeks ago now. It's already flown by.
Yeah. Well, no, I think it'll be 3 weeks this Saturday.
Oh,
so
my gosh.
like 2.5 weeks, yeah.
That's nuts.
Yeah, it's been crazy. It feels like it's flown by. So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he just turned 24, and Connie did
Yep.
too.
A lot
right?
of change. Yep.
Wow.
Birthdays, getting married. It's been great.
Dude, getting freaking old.
Yeah, dude.
Awesome. Cool. Well, welcome back. Glad to have you. Last week I did the solo episode on how to start a podcast, and I put the call out there for a new co-host because we're firing you.
Got it.
Anyone out there still, come on soon, because I got to get rid of Jeremy. Just kidding. Jeremy's the favorite. We like Jeremy. All right. It's cool. So what are we talking about today?
Well, we had a title, but it just got scratched apparently.
I don't know what we're going to call it.
Today we're talking about just the idea of kind of like struggles and kind of what it's like from the start to the finish, and kind of what do we do in the middle and in the gap, and kind of when we're just in the middle of an issue or a struggle or something that we're waiting for and it's kind of a long ways away. Maybe it's a promise you've had, maybe it was a prophecy over your life, or just something you've wanted for a long time, but you're kind of just waiting in that process. So tonight we're talking about that.
Yeah. And yeah, I feel like this is an important topic, and something, I don't know if you're like feeling it as strongly as I am, but I know that I'm feeling like sometimes life feels really fast and like you can't slow it down. And then some other times life feels really slow and like you just want to get to kind of like the next place or like the next stage. Like I remember feeling like that when we were engaged, and like I just want to be married. You know what I mean? Like I'm just gonna kind of like not autopilot, but like I'm just so focused on like that day when I get married and like being married.
Like when this happens, then I'll be good. I'll
exactly.
be happy.
And like you just like totally disregard everything that's going on, how you feel, where you're at, and you just kind of like look forward to that in the future. Next phase of like my career, whatever it looks like. But also I just feel like time goes by so fast right now. Actually, I was just telling Monique, I was like, I don't even know what day it is most times. Like it's like, oh, we're playing basketball again on Wednesday nights. I'm like, wait, that was a week? Or like, it's Friday already. Like there goes the work week. And I just feel like things, I don't know, are like super fast right now.
Yeah. I, like a year and a half ago, I was like way into this topic right here. I don't know. I just really liked it. And for me in that time, life felt like really slow. It felt like, I'm like way far from how I want my life to be, and all the things that I want to accomplish. Like I'm far from getting there. And right now, I think life has felt like really fast paced the last year. And so I'm kind of hoping it slows down a little bit. But like I'm not complaining. This pace of life is probably better than kind of being somewhere where you're just like stuck and you're waiting.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's like the funny part about it too, is it's sort of like having fun. Like when you're having fun, time goes by super fast, and you could be playing something or doing something for like 3 hours, but it feels like 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're not having fun, then it seems like it takes forever. So I don't know. It's like you can't like have fun and let time slow down. You know what I mean? Like you have to kind of accept, or at least like try really intentionally to slow things down, even when like you're at a good spot in life.
Yeah. I mean, I can totally relate with you when you said that you don't know what day it is and how it just feels like it's going quick. Like that's been the majority of my life. The last 6 months it's felt that way. And it's kind of funny for me, at least. I came out of a season of like probably like a year and a half, like 2 years, or not longer than that, of like being in the spot of like, dude, this sucks. Like just not liking where I was. And it felt like it had lasted so long. And I mean, 2 years is a decent amount of time, but there was no like slow, like speed up, it just went straight from that to like 200%, like way, too quick. And so it was kind of funny for me. There was no transition. It was just like slow to like way fast,
Yeah.
I prefer this pace again, but it's still crazy.
Well, it's different too. I'm sure like you're sort of coming to terms with it a little bit right now, but being married changes that a lot. And like you just got married. I just reminded because I was like, oh wait, he has a ring on his finger. What is that? I was like, oh wait, it's his wedding band. But I remember when I first got married, then I was looking back and thinking like, literally, what was life before I was married? Like, I would never want to go back to not being married again.
Dude, just like 2 nights ago, we were like, remember when we weren't married?
It seems like, so
that
foreign.
Sucked. Like,
It really does.
I would never do that again. Like, thank God I won't have to. But I mean, like, if there was a choice, like, I wouldn't. Like, of course not. You said a minute ago, we have to be intentional to like slow down, and at first I kind of disagreed. I think at first I thought that's not really possible, but in thinking it through, I think we can totally like be intentional about slowing things down. For me and Connie, like now that we're married, like it's only been, I think we've been home for like almost 2 weeks, and so these 2 weeks have been pretty like slow paced, which has been kind of fun. And for us, we're trying to be intentional this year to slow things down because we've both lived a pretty fast-paced life, and so I'm sure that'll change as like the season changes. But as of now, we're trying to be intentional about like really choosing when to say yes and when to say no to things, and just trying to slow down our life because that fast pace, we know we can't keep it up. And I think in a fast-paced life, like you miss things. You miss, certain moments or just memories or whatever it is. You miss it because you're moving so quick. So
yeah, I think we're slowly kind of getting to like the center of what we want to talk about, and it's like this dichotomy of life is really short and we only have so much time, and like all the good things go by really fast, but then like when you're not in the good, or like when you're waiting for the good things or you're building towards the good things, then it feels like life is really slow. And in either position, you can miss out on what's happening right now. You know what I mean? And you can kind of like take it for granted and miss out on cool opportunities for your relationships, for your spiritual life with the Lord, with your faith. You can take it for granted, and then like you look back and you're like, wait, like what was I doing, or what was life like before this? And you forget kind of to take in that time instead of really taking advantage of it. Yeah.
Why don't we jump in and read that passage?
Yes. So this is going to be kind of the main passage that we're going to draw from. But it's the story of, is it Cleopas or Cleophas?
I think it's Cleophas.
Okay. I think in here it says Cleopas. Either way, I'm not sure how to pronounce it. Yeah, Cleopas. Cleopas.
Oh, this is Phus.
Oh, weird. Different translations. Different.
Call him Cleo.
Cleo. All right, Cleo. This is the story of Cleo. It's in Luke 24, and I think we'll read some of the verses between 13 and 29. But just some context around this. So Luke 24, this is after Jesus' resurrection, and this is when Jesus has come back, and now he's started to make some appearances to people. So starting in verse 13, it says, "And behold, 2 of them were going that very day to a village named Emmaus, which was about 7 miles from Jerusalem, so not far from where Jesus was and everything. And they were talking with each other about all these things which had taken place, aka Jesus' crucifixion and alleged resurrection." Verse 15, "While they were walking discussing, Jesus himself approached and began traveling with them, but their eyes were prevented from recognizing." So we can kind of like imagine this picture. Everyone, this is like a huge event, right? Jesus was known around the world, or around this part of the world, like by everyone. Everyone was talking about the miracles. Is he God? Is he not God? Is he the Son of God? Is he not the Son of God? And then Jesus is crucified and died. And now everyone's kind of in this waiting period to see like what happens. Is Jesus is he gonna live again? Is he gonna do what he said he was and come back from the dead? And then Jesus appears and he starts traveling with them, but they don't recognize that it's Jesus actually walking with them. So, and then this is where it gets fun. Verse 17, "And he said to them," the people that are walking, these 2, "What are these words that you are exchanging with one another as you are walking?" And they stood still, looking sad. One of them, named Cleo, answered and said to him, "Are you the only one visiting Jerusalem and unaware of the things which have happened here in these days?" So
he's like, "Dude, are you the only one that doesn't know what's going on?" And it's like stupid? The one that knows.
He's talking to Jesus, and he's like, "Bro, where have you been? Have you been living on a rock?" Okay, verse 19, "And he said to them, 'What things?' And Jesus is kind of like egging him on a little bit. And they said to him the things about Jesus the Nazarene, who was a prophet, mighty in deed and in word in the sight of God and all the people, and how the chief priests and our rulers delivered him to the sentence of death and crucified him. But we were hoping that it was he who was going to redeem Israel. Indeed, besides all this, sorry, I just got interrupted. Indeed, besides all this, it is the third day since these things have happened. So they're telling Jesus, like, okay, here's the rundown. There's this guy Jesus. He was crucified. He was given over. We were hoping that he was God or the Son of God, but now it's been 3 days and nothing has happened. Okay, verse 22. But also some women among us amazed us. When they were at the tomb early in the morning, it did not find his body. They came, saying that they had also seen a vision of angels who said that he was alive. Some of those who were with us went to the tomb and found it was just exactly as the woman had also said. But him, Jesus, they did not see. So they kind of have like some hope a little bit. Mm-hmm. They have like, they're like, I don't think that he was, but like also there's some like weird stuff going on. Like we think maybe he could have come back. And he, Jesus, said to them, O foolish men and slow of heart to believe in all the prophets have spoken. Was it not necessary for the Christ to suffer these things and to enter into his glory? Then, beginning with Moses and with all the prophets, he explained to them the things concerning himself in all the scriptures. And then it says, and then that's
pretty
basically
much, that's where we want to go.
Yeah.
That's great. I was telling Corey that I found this passage today before we recorded, and I was first surprised. Like, this seems like a pretty like great analogy, like a huge passage that I haven't really heard like ever.
Yeah,
which is weird. Like, it's so good. Cleopas? Like, yeah, Cleo. But that story and just thinking about how so often, like, whatever we're going through, whatever we're complaining about or having issues with, like, during all that, like, right there with us is Jesus. And that's kind of what we want to talk about. Like, dude, these people were in the middle of like their frustrations and like looking around and all these promises they had and just saying like, man, like where is he? Like, he said he was gonna raise, he didn't. Like, what's going on? And like freaking they're talking to the man, like Jesus. It was just so crazy and funny how that played out.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, such a good story.
Yeah, and I feel like already we can kind of extract from this, I mean, thousands of different analogies of like, you know, they're traveling, like basically they're going from A to B, like they're outside of Jerusalem, but they're talking about it. And essentially they're wondering like, what's next? Like, what's going to happen? What are we waiting for? So they're all talking together. And like you said, it's ironic that Jesus was there and that he was actually the one that they were talking to. But at the same time, the story is sort of a bummer because they didn't recognize Jesus. And they could have, you know, been like, you know, I don't know. They basically looked kind of dumb, and they missed out on maybe some more insight from Jesus, some more intimacy with Jesus. But because they were skeptical and doubtful, and they couldn't see Jesus, you know, this wasn't the way the story was supposed to be played out for them. You know, it was a really cool opportunity for them, but they didn't recognize it.
Yeah. Well, you said that it was ironic. Like, it was ironic that they, as they're complaining and talking about these circumstances, like right there, you know, there he is. I mean, that's like really like how it comes down to us. Like you said earlier, like talking about slow seasons of life, and I just thinking back for me, like a year and a half, 2 years ago, when I was in a time of like, man, like this sucks, like this is not where I want to be, like life is not what I hoped it would be, right? Especially at this point in my life, like I was Cleo, like that's literally where I was at, like complaining and just unhappy. And I mean, sure enough, like as I'm like feeling those feelings and like, you know, making complaints, like God was right there with me, and that's the reality of what we're talking about. Like in the middle of all of these conflicts or just like these stories that are unwinding in front of us, while, you know, it takes that time, but in the middle of it, like God is there with us. And I think that's just the bottom line point we want to get across is whether you feel it or not, whether you have hope or you're losing hope, like he is there, he is with you.
Yeah. And they were focused on the circumstances instead of actually looking for Jesus. You know what I mean? Like Jesus goes and does his thing, he's crucified, and now they're like, okay, well, like, we'll see what happens. You know what I mean? And I feel like that's how we can sort of approach our lives in some things, whether it's like, I don't know, finding a job, getting married, buying a house, like starting your family, like all these things. We could just kind of like, all right, God, well, here's what I want, and like, let's see what you do, instead of actively going out and pursuing Jesus and looking for him in these, all the, waiting times and all the kind of time up into that time where it actually happens for you, where you do find a job, where you do start your family, where you do buy a house, etc.
It's interesting. I think a lot of people, I think it's easy to kind of be in this state of like losing hope, like, because for so long we want something, and then we hit a point to where it's like, man, it's not happening, so we lose hope. And you think of like Cleo, my boy Cleo, in a story, like, what if the story went on to where, he's talking, right, he's feeling this way, and then sure enough, Jesus comes along and says, hey, like, by the way, like, I'm Jesus. And what if Cleo would have said, like, no, you're not, like, and like, denied him? Like, that could have happened to where he just was so set in his way of losing hope, and he missed, like, he really missed it,
Yeah.
Like, in this story, he missed it, but I mean, once he saw that it was Jesus, like, the story goes on to where there's a point in a story where at one point Jesus says, okay, like, it's getting late, I'm moving on, and they ask him to stay with them. And so it was like they saw him, they wanted him. And I think sometimes for us, it goes the opposite, to where like we've so long, like, we've held on to giving up hope, and we just believe like that's where we are. And when good comes our way, when like relief comes, we push it away because we don't think it's actually the relief that we want,
Yeah, I feel like it's also a good metaphor too for like, so many times we can stick with something for so long, like we can trust God in something, we can pray for someone, we can pursue him for something, we can ask for his help in something, and then right before we're about to get the result of that thing, or when we're right before the reward, or like when actually God does come through and answers your prayer, then we give up. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
so like,
for sure.
These people too, like, they had given up hope. Essentially, they're like, we thought that he was the one who was going to redeem Israel. Well, if they didn't think that, and if they were believing in Jesus and looking for him, they would have recognized him and seen him in that. But because of that, they were blinded to it, and they didn't get to experience it as well. And I feel like, so I wrote down a couple different like biblical stories too, but there's so many things that, one, take time, but also like if they had given up,
they wouldn't have gotten it.
Yeah, like they wouldn't have gotten it at all. Like I think of Noah. So studiers estimate that it took 55 to 75 years to build the ark. That's literally
such a long time. That's our lives.
That's an entire lifetime.
And it was different back then, like how long they lived. But we still like, I mean, relative to them, that was probably like what, like 20 years for them, probably. Like if you were to equate it, like how long they lived versus
like the portion of their life.
Yeah, but still, like we can't comprehend spending 10 and 20 years, like, that's crazy because he didn't even like really know. It was kind of like, oh, well, I was told this, so I'm gonna believe it and do it. Dude, that's insane. Yeah.
Well, and the thing too is like they lived longer, so it's not like that seemed like a shorter time to them. It still felt.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to say. It's relative to how we live. Yeah.
It still felt and took 55 to 75 years. I mean, let's just say like it took at least 50 years. Imagine.
That's crazy.
Imagine God calling you today, right now, and saying, hey, I want you to go do this insane thing that everyone's going to ridicule you for, not have any estimate as to how long it's going to take, and it takes the next 50 years of your life.
That's so crazy.
Like, that's the rest of your life.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But think about if Noah had, like, given up at the end, or if he had, like, lost hope or started doubting God, like, the entire, it would have been completely different.
What's funny is, like, as you're saying this, like, we have a few more, but like, it doesn't sit well. Like, you hear it and you're just like, like, like for me, at least, when I hear that, I'm like, oh, like, that sucks. But I think one point we're making is if you have to go through that, basically. Like, if you from A to Z, like, in order to get to Z, there's going to be the ups and downs, and we have to go through it. And there is no getting around that. Yeah. I think especially for promises, like if someone, I think some people have prophetic words over their lives or promises that were made to them, and in order to fulfill those, I think more times than not requires some kind of slump, some kind of like climbing a mountain, if not.
Yeah. Well, also, like, Noah could have spent the next 55 to 75 years with a grudge and been like, oh my gosh, I have to freaking build this ark, and like I have to devote the rest of my life to this. All my free time, every spare moment goes to this freaking ark, and like basically build all this like resentment towards God. Or he could have had grace about it, been thankful to God, and God could have drawn him, so close during that time and so intimate. And so it's all about how you use and perceive the time rather than like what the time is itself. Think about Joseph too. So we're going through the Bible right now, and I was really excited to get to Joseph. It starts.
Explain that. You and Monique, right?
Yeah, so we're attempting to read the whole Bible this year. We're already behind, but that's again besides the point. Go listen to the Saying No to Resolutions episode. But I just finished up Genesis, and so reading through the story of Joseph too, it struck me that Joseph was 30 when he became the ruler of Egypt, but that was after he had been a slave and even imprisoned for a total of 15 years. So he was still a kid. I mean, think about being a sophomore in high school and then getting sold into slavery and then like working your way up, being struck down, like being thrown in prison, getting another chance, getting thrown in prison again. And he finally gets kind of like his big break at 30 years old. But think about doing, like, God had this promise to him that his brothers were going to bow down to him and he was going to be a ruler when he was a young kid, when he was, 12, 13, 14 years old. And then for the next 15 years, it seems like that is never going to happen. Like, there's no way you're ever going to get to some sort of position to be able to do that. And again, Joseph could have been really resentful. He could have been like, I'm just going to like waste away these next few years, or like wait for the next big thing, wait till I'm done with jail. But no, like God met him through that time, and he used him. Another one was Moses. So Moses was 80 years old when God called him to go to Egypt and free the Israelites from slavery. I don't know about you, but when I'm 80, like, I mean, I want to be like sitting on a beach, sipping some drinks.
You've done your time.
Yeah, like you're kind of done with like the adventurous, dangerous stuff. You know what I mean? And then it took a lot more years after that. I think maybe another like 45 years, an estimate, before Moses passed away, and he kind of handed the reins over to Joshua. But like he spent again, it's all about the way that you use your time. And this was sort of, Moses never like went out and sought kind of greatness from God. He wasn't like a really ambitious guy, but still, like, to start something at 80 and then to think like, when is this going to end? You know what I mean? Like, when am I going to get back to normal life? Like he could have thought about that really differently. And then the final example is the Israelites wandering in the wilderness. And this is with Moses again, but the Israelites wandered in the wilderness for 40 years before entering the promised land from Abraham and Isaac, that God had promised them, like, this is where I'm going to establish my nation and my people. Again, 40 years is a long time. Like, that 40 years is like, I feel like wandering in the wilderness is kind of like the perfect example for feeling like life is going slow. Yeah. You know what I mean? Just waiting for the next thing to happen.
Yeah, these stories are funny because it like makes you think. Like, I think about myself and like, man, I'm just like, I'm a weenie. Like, like to think about like these, because these are real stories where people actually, waited, 55 years, 30 years, 80 years. And, it also prompts in me, like, thinking like, man, like, what are those things that so far in my life that I've given up on? Like, I was on fire for it. I was pumped up about for a few weeks, months, maybe like a year. But after, it being hard for a little while, I stopped. And I think for all of us, like, we can just think about that. Like, man, like, if these people, dedicated like a huge portion of their life, like, why is it that we tire after just a few, months or weeks of something being hard,
Yeah, totally. I'll read a verse, Galatians 6:9. This is Paul speaking. He says, "Let us not become weary in doing good, for at the proper time we will reap a harvest if we do not give up."
Good timing, man.
On point, baby.
That's it. Just gonna read it.
No, that's it. I was just mulling. Just
let it sit and marinate.
Yeah, just let it marinate. But again, like, don't become weary in doing good. And I think like where this all is coming from is when it seems like things aren't the way that you want them to be right now. Like, you can't give up on right now, but you also can't give up in the future. Like, you can't give up on that thing that God has promised you that you're working towards, or the thing that you want so badly to achieve. You can't give up in doing good.
As you were talking, I was thinking it's also so important just to, like, especially in those times, to surround yourself like with friends and people that can share in that struggle with you, and that you can at least just like dream with and talk to, and bounce ideas off each other. It's so much easier to be in the middle of a difficult season or time when you have someone there with you, whether they're encouraging you or you're just simply talking to,
Yeah.
Super important.
Yeah, definitely important. I feel like too, I I don't know, like going back to the whole mindset thing. It's interesting that he says, for at the proper time, we will reap a harvest if we do not give up. I think it's important too, like to always like have that thing like that you're fixed on, that you're focused on. And for Cleo and for his bro, I don't know how he got left off. He didn't like get name dropped like Cleo did, but like he took his eyes off of Jesus. He took his eyes off the prize. I mean, they were obviously all talking about it and waiting for it, and they were excited about it. But he took his eyes off, and then he missed out on Jesus.
It's funny you mentioned that, because I was on today's Thursday. On Monday this week, I was with my small group, and I was speaking, and I was talking about actually Visioneering by Andy Stanley, and just talking with them about having a vision for their life and a vision for high school and kind of like things they want to accomplish. And one of the things I really like focused on was if you have like goals and objectives or something you want to accomplish, it's so much easier to see those things through when you have like the end result in mind. Like if you know why you're doing something, if you know why something is hard, you are more likely to fulfill that if you have the why in mind. Kind of like you just said. I'm thinking of like, Moses with the ark. Like he wouldn't have given 55 to 75 years of his life if he wasn't certain that God spoke to him telling him to do this. And so, with anything, if we have the end result in front of us in our minds, like it's just so much easier to see it through.
Yeah. I mean, all those examples, going back to it.
Yeah, really all of them. Yeah.
Noah with the ark, Joseph with becoming the ruler of Egypt, Moses with getting the people out of Egypt and into the promised land, all the Israelites in getting out of the wilderness and into the promised land. Like without that reward, without that harvest in mind, there's just no way that you're going to make it. And it makes enduring now easier and more fulfilling and closer with God when you have that end in mind as well. Also read Romans 5:2-4. It says, "Through whom we have gained access by faith into this grace in which we now stand, and we boast in the hope of the glory of God. Not only so, but we also glory in our sufferings, because we know that suffering produces perseverance, perseverance character, and character hope." I love when he says, "Through whom we have gained access by faith into this grace in which we now stand." And he's talking about enduring persecution. He's talking about perseverance. He's talking about like basically going through sufferings. But he says, by this faith into this grace which we now stand. So basically he's saying like, even though you're suffering or you're waiting or like life seems slow right now, you can still have that grace through that time.
Yeah, I love that phrase, glory in our sufferings. There's I think it's in Hebrews, there's a verse that says, he's talking about, I forget who it is, but he's talking about basically like sinners, and he says they glory in their shame, like talking about how they like boast and they're like proud of and they're happy with like their shame and their sin. But this is the opposite, saying that we are proud of our hope in our perseverance in Jesus, and that is our reassurance and our hope. I like that.
Yeah, that's good. Anything else?
No, I mean I think I feel like I've covered my points. I think we did well.
I think we did well. Well, we'll end it there. We'll see what the episode title ends up being. But as always, thanks for listening. Subscribe, tell your friends about it. Leave us a 6-star review, preferably. You can always reach us on Facebook, Instagram, or email us at cultivateandkeep.com. But otherwise, we will talk to you later.
Peace.